Bob Ross is remembered as a calm painter with the soft voice, the gentle smile, the happy little trees, and the peaceful landscapes that help millions of people relax after long and stressful days. For many viewers, watching an episode of The Joy of Painting felt almost therapeutic. His quiet tone, slow brush movements, and reassuring words created a sense of comfort that very few television personalities ever achieved. But behind that warm and peaceful image was a much stranger and more complicated story than most viewers ever realized. His life included strict military years, surprising business deals, hidden conflicts, rescued animals, bizarre merchandise, and a legacy that exploded once again decades after his death. In this story, we are uncovering rare facts about Bob Ross' famous hair, his massive painting empire, the surprising truth behind his success, and the unexpected ways the joy of painting returned to modern pop culture long after many people thought it had faded away forever. One of the strangest parts of Bob Ross' image was also one of the most famous, his giant cloud of curly hair. Those curls became so recognizable that millions of people assumed the hairstyle had been carefully designed from the very beginning. It looked like part of the complete Bob Ross package. The soft voice, the calm personality, the denim shirt, and the unforgettable curls all blended together into one perfect television identity. But the truth behind the hairstyle was far less glamorous than most people imagined. Bob Ross did not get the perm because he believed it looked stylish, and no television producer forced him to create a memorable appearance for audiences. He actually chose the hairstyle for one simple reason: money. Before the joy of painting made him famous, Bob Ross traveled around the country teaching painting classes. During those years, he lived carefully and tried to save money anywhere he could. Regular haircuts slowly became an annoying expense, especially while constantly traveling from city to city. Ross realized that getting a perm could reduce the need for constant haircuts and make his appearance easier to maintain. Financially, the plan worked perfectly, but visually, the result shocked him. Instead of ending up with a normal hairstyle, Bob Ross suddenly had tight curls that instantly stood out. At first, they were simply a cheap and practical decision. Yet over time, those curls quietly transformed into one of the most recognizable appearances in television history. Once the joy of painting exploded in popularity, the hairstyle stopped being just hair. It became a global brand. Bob Ross' silhouette appeared everywhere. His image was printed on books, paint kits, posters, commercials, mugs, calendars, shirts, and television advertisements. Viewers recognized him immediately before he even spoke a single word. The curls became connected to peace, comfort, and relaxation itself. Ironically, Bob Ross reportedly disliked the hairstyle for many years. He eventually grew tired of maintaining the curls and supposedly wanted to change his appearance completely. But by that point, the audience had become emotionally attached to the look. The curls were no longer just part of Bob Ross. To millions of viewers, the curls were Bob Ross. What started as a small money-saving decision quietly became a lifelong trademark that followed him everywhere. But the famous perm was only the beginning of the strange patterns hidden inside Bob Ross' world. Because over time, fans began noticing something unusual about his paintings themselves. For years, people joked that Bob Ross could never finish a painting without adding at least one happy little tree. The funny thing is that the numbers actually support that joke. In 2014, a data analyst carefully studied every painting featured on The Joy of Painting and discovered a remarkable pattern. Trees appeared in almost every single episode. Mountains, rivers, cabins, lakes, clouds, and waterfalls changed depending on episode, but trees remained nearly constant throughout the series. They became the true stars of Bob Ross' painted universe. The deeper researchers looked into his work, the stranger the pattern became. Bob Ross almost never left a single tree standing alone. Whenever he painted one tree, another usually appeared nearby moments later. The habit perfectly matched one of his most famous sayings. Ross often joked that trees needed friends. While audiences laughed at the comment during episodes, over hundreds of paintings, it slowly revealed itself as a genuine artistic pattern. One lonely tree almost always grew into an entire forest before the episode ended. Viewers rarely notice a repetition because Bob Ross' calm voice made everything feel natural and spontaneous. His brush seemed to move freely without planning, yet hidden underneath was a consistent formula that appeared again and again. The pattern revealed something else about Bob Ross' artistic vision, too. Human beings were almost completely absent from his world. Across hundreds of paintings, people rarely appeared at all. Instead, Ross focused on snowy mountains, rivers, forests, lakes, waterfalls, clouds, and endless open skies. Even when cabins appeared, they usually looked tiny compared to the enormous landscapes surrounding them. That artistic choice helped create the peaceful atmosphere viewers connected with the show. His paintings felt untouched by crowds, stress, traffic, or modern noise. They looked like quiet places hidden far away from ordinary life. Behind every happy little tree was a carefully repeated formula designed to pull audiences into calmness and silence again and again. That absence of people became especially noticeable because human figures were surprisingly rare in Bob Ross paintings. Across hundreds of episodes of The Joy of Painting, viewers watched him create endless forests, snowy mountains, quiet lakes, rivers, waterfalls, fences, cabins, and winding trails disappearing into the distance. Yet there was one thing they almost never saw: people. During his entire time on the series, Bob Ross only painted one truly recognizable human figure himself, and even that figure remained mostly hidden. The unusual moment appeared during an episode called Campfire. Near the glowing fire stood a lone cowboy leaning quietly against a tree. But the figure was not painted with detailed facial features or realistic clothing. Instead, the cowboy appeared mostly as a dark silhouette blending into the shadows around the campsite. The image felt mysterious and distant, almost ghost-like. It looked less like a portrait and more like the suggestion of a human presence hidden inside nature. The cowboy became memorable precisely because human figures were so unusual inside Bob Ross' artistic universe. There was also a practical reason for avoiding faces. Bob Ross painted extremely quickly, often completing entire landscapes in less than 30 minutes. Trees, mountains, rivers, and clouds allowed room for mistakes. A mountain could shift shape. A tree could grow larger. Water reflections could blur naturally without ruining the painting. Human faces were completely different. One small mistake involving the eyes, mouth, or proportions could destroy the illusion instantly. Ross understood that landscapes gave him freedom, while faces demanded precision that did not fit the fast pace of television painting. One of the most unusual episodes of The Joy of Painting revealed another hidden side of Bob Ross entirely. The episode began with a message from a viewer who explained that he was colorblind and believed painting was impossible for someone like him. Many television hosts might have offered a few encouraging words before moving on to another topic. Bob Ross did something far more meaningful. Instead of simply offering advice, he built an entire episode around that viewer's struggle. The episode became known as Shades of Grey, and audiences immediately noticed something different. The bright blues, greens, reds, and yellows usually spread across Bob Ross' palette were completely gone. Instead, he painted using only shades of gray mixed carefully with white paint and subtle tones. Mountains slowly appeared through layers of shadow and light. Trees emerged from contrast instead of bright color. Reflections formed inside dark water, without relying on the rich tones viewers normally expected from the series. Even without color, the final painting still looked peaceful, balanced, and complete. What made the episode powerful was not simply the artistic technique. It was the emotional message hiding underneath every brushstroke. Bob Ross wanted viewers to understand that limitations do not automatically destroy creativity. If one path becomes difficult, another path can still exist. Throughout the episode, he never treated colorblindness as something tragic or hopeless. He remained calm, patient, and encouraging, guiding viewers through the process exactly as he always did. That quiet kindness became one of the reasons audiences trusted him so deeply over the years. Long before Bob Ross became television's calmest painter, he already had a deep love for injured animals. Growing up in Florida, he often brought wounded creatures home and cared for them personally. Friends and family later remembered him rescuing squirrels, birds, and even a baby alligator at one point. While the world knew him for peaceful landscapes and happy little trees, people close to him understood that his kindness extended far beyond the canvas. Helping animals quietly became part of his everyday life years before television cameras ever arrived. That gentle side of Bob Ross occasionally appeared on The Joy of Painting in surprising ways. Viewers sometimes saw tiny animals sitting beside him while he painted. One of the most famous was Peapod, a rescued squirrel Bob cared for until she became healthy enough to survive independently. During episodes, he calmly fed the squirrel while continuing to paint and speak to the audience as if nothing unusual was happening. Another memorable animal guest was Hoot, a baby owl whose wide eyes instantly charmed viewers. These creatures were not television props created for entertainment. Bob Ross genuinely cared for them behind the scenes. As the years passed, Bob and his wife reportedly transformed part of their property into a small sanctuary for injured wildlife. They helped animals privately without seeking attention or publicity. That detail explains why the natural world inside his paintings always felt so sincere. The quiet forests, untouched mountains, calm rivers, and peaceful lakes reflected how Bob Ross genuinely viewed nature in real life. The atmosphere audiences experienced on television was not an act created for cameras. It matched the quiet world he tried to protect outside the studio as well. Despite painting thousands upon thousands of landscapes, original Bob Ross paintings are strangely difficult to find today. Many fans assume his artwork must exist everywhere because of how often he painted on television. But instead of being sold widely through museums and galleries, many of those paintings remain under control of Bob Ross, Incorporated for years. Even more surprisingly, reports claim that many works were stored in ordinary cardboard boxes rather than displayed inside expensive museum vaults. The same peaceful landscapes that comforted millions of viewers ended up stacked away quietly like forgotten office supplies. During the original run of The Joy of Painting, the paintings were not treated like priceless masterpieces. Bob Ross himself often cared more about teaching people to paint than selling individual works. Public television stations found creative uses for the paintings during fundraising drives. Some PBS stations offered original Bob Ross paintings as prizes for viewers who donated money during pledge campaigns. At the time, many audiences simply saw them as fun collector items connected to a relaxing television show. Very few people imagined those same paintings would later become incredibly valuable. Years after Bob Ross passed away, something unexpected happened. Streaming platforms, internet memes, social media clips, and younger audiences suddenly rediscovered the joy of painting. The show found an entirely new generation of fans. People who had never watched public television during the original broadcasts now streamed episodes online late at night for comfort and relaxation. As interest exploded again, the paintings that once quietly supported PBS fundraising campaigns transformed into major collector pieces. Auction prices climbed dramatically, with certain works selling for astonishing amounts of money. One painting from the very first episode even attracted headlines because of its enormous asking price. Behind Bob Ross' success stood another artist whose name many casual fans barely recognize today, Bill Alexander. Before Bob Ross became the most famous television painter in America, Alexander had already introduced millions of viewers to fast landscape painting through a series of magic of oil painting. Alexander taught a technique known as wet-on-wet painting, where artists applied fresh paint directly onto wet layers instead of waiting hours or days for the canvas to dry. The approach allowed mountains, clouds, rivers, and trees to appear quickly, making it perfect for television demonstrations. Bob Ross learned the technique from Alexander and openly admired him during the early stages of his career. At first, the relationship between the two artists appeared respectful and friendly. Bob Ross publicly credited Bill Alexander during his rise to fame. But everything changed once The Joy of Painting became a massive success. Bob's softer voice, calmer personality, and relaxed style connected with audiences in a way very few television hosts ever had. His popularity grew rapidly, while Alexander slowly faded from the spotlight. Over time, resentment reportedly developed between them. Alexander later expressed frustration in interviews, believing Ross had copied his painting method and surpassed him using the exact style he had originally taught. The conflict shocked many viewers because Bob Ross seemed so peaceful on screen. Audiences saw a calm painter who smiled gently, avoided arguments, and constantly reminded people that mistakes were simply happy accidents. Yet behind the scenes, tension surrounding fame, business, and artistic ownership quietly existed beneath the surface. It revealed something many fans struggled to accept. Even the most comforting public figures can become involved in complicated and painful human conflicts. That strange contrast became part of the larger mystery surrounding Bob Ross himself. To the public, he looked like a symbol of pure calmness, but his real life contained military discipline, business pressures, artistic rivalries, financial decisions, and emotional struggles hidden beneath the soft voice and peaceful landscapes. Perhaps that complexity is one reason his legacy survived so long after his death. People did not simply connect with his paintings. They connected with a comforting feeling he created during uncertain times. Decades later, Bob Ross remains more than just a television painter. His image has become part of modern culture itself. Younger audiences who never watched the original broadcast now wear shirts covering his face, stream episodes online before sleeping, and share clips of his calm voice across social media. His paintings continue to inspire beginners who believe art feels intimidating or impossible.